So what I sought in considering today's reflection was an example of our horizontal interdependence that was quite clear, that demonstrated how a macro system like the planet is influenced by smaller systems like nations and economies and churches, and on down the line in scale to you and your choices, and then reverse engineer that up to show how the planet influences each of those. And I wanted to build a clear chain of causality that was also a two-way road, to mix metaphors. And I wanted to make sure that we saw our part in it. So then, I'm thinking about our relationship with the planet. And right now, generally, that's not so good. I mean, if we were treating each other the way that we are treating our biosphere, we would be in jail. We're killing it. Or at least we are killing its capacity to sustain humanity and billions of other creatures as well. And the effects of climate change are all encompassing, and why wouldn't they be? Our climate is the foundation of our existence. And if we mess it up, we're going to see, and we are seeing, an increase in desperation migration and war. We're seeing an increase in respiratory diseases and diseases spread by insects. We see health issues related to our food and water systems crop up. Plus, heat and weather caused fatalities and species endangerment are evident. And if this climate change is human-caused, which is not really open for debate anymore, I understand, then there is no way around the notion that we are culpable in this system of death. We are culpable by our participation in systems that destroy the biosphere. We are culpable in our planet's destruction by our participation in systems that are destroying our biosphere. And these include our food systems, transportation systems, political systems, and energy production systems. Basically, any system that has to do with resource development and deployment, right? And all of that falls under the larger aegis of our economic system. In her upcoming documentary, This Changes Everything, Naomi Klein places blame, most of the blame, for our climate catastrophe on our economic system. She observes that our economic system and our planetary system are now at war. Or more accurately, our economy is at war with many forms of life on Earth, including human life. So because we affirm interdependence and because we participate in our economic system, those are both true, right? We affirm interdependence and we participate in our economic system. We are implicated. But is it our fault? No. The system is not your fault any more than slavery was the fault of those slave owners who were born into their station. Of course, did that in any way lessen the sin? A major problem is that our entire social structure, our economy, our government, the way our cities are built, rests on the very functions that are destroying our mother. And we are beginning to see the cost now. We saw it in New Orleans and Galveston. We see it in the wildfires that are plaguing Washington and the western U.S. every year. We see it in the water levels of Lake Powell and the drought that is hitting the most productive strip of land on the planet in California. And that is just what we see. Because here is another truth. The most affected people are the least responsible for the cause. Meanwhile, the least affected people are the most responsible. Do you know who that is? I'll tell you who that is. That's the people who deny climate change. And I don't mean just in their rhetorics and politics. There are people, of course, who deny that climate change is happening and also live in denial that that is happening. There's a certain perverse integrity in that. And then, and this is what had me simmering all week, there are people who understand it is happening and live in denial of it. Live in denial of it. Say it is happening, but their actions and their words do not sync up. And that by that, I mean most politically liberal people in the United States. And by that, I mean us. And we espouse great concern, but we live as though there is no need to make a difference or that what we do makes no difference. And we also affirm and promote interdependence as a core thread of our faith. And then we have the gall to castigate other religions for their hypocrisy? No. No and no. We have no right. But what's a little old you to do in the face of the entire economy? See, here's where things spin up and spin down right quick. Spinning up, wealth has been outrageously concentrated at the top percentage points of our economy. Concentration of wealth leads to a concentration of power, which in turn protects that concentration of power. That's just natural. Our financial, oil, and food resources are in the hands of a very few people and corporations. And so it comes to pass that we live in a national plutocracy where the wealthy have wildly disproportionate effect on our government and therefore our lives. And as Naomi Klein observes, we are stuck because the actions that would give us the best chance of averting catastrophe and would benefit the vast majority, she's talking, I think, planetarily here, not just in America, are extremely threatening to an elite minority that has a stranglehold over our economy, our political process, and most of our major media outlets. In other words, the engine that drives climate change is also the same engine that sustains the wealth of the demagogues. So it's their fault, right? Well, interdependence, right? Because spinning down to the engine that sustains us, the engine that sustains all people, reveals our direct culpability. The engine that sustains us, or one of them anyway, the engine that sustains us, literally, biologically, is our food. Just as climate is the most comprehensive thing, what we eat is the most fundamental thing, and they are both intimately related. They are the same thing. Our hypocrisy, our culpability is revealed by our dinner plates, and there is one outlying entree that is prime in its negative impact on our planets and our bodies. So considered as a whole, agriculture for the production of livestock is responsible for nearly 20% of all greenhouse gases and is rapidly destroying rainforests in the Amazon and everywhere. Agriculture consumes 85% of drinkable water and is used mostly for livestock. According to our Government Accountability Office, an estimated 1.6 million tons of animal waste is created in the US alone, and this waste is unregulated. Your waste is regulated. Animal waste is not regulated. And it's full of antibiotics, phosphorus, nitrogen, and other things that leach into our soil and drinking water. Agriculture produces 130 times more crap than humans. And it's filled with the antibiotics they are injected with and the pesticides their food is sprayed with. 80% of the 1.3 million tons of pesticides that are used in this country are used for crops that go to feed livestock. 80% of the pesticides are going to crops that your meat is eating. Meat is transported with oil, packaged in oil. Fertilizer is made of oil. The foundation of agriculture has been noted to have switched from soil to oil. Livestock accounts for 7 times the deforestation of sprawl and urbanization. Livestock accounts for 7 times more deforestation than sprawl or urbanization. So beef's environmental impact dwarfs by 10 times that of other meat, including chicken and pork, 10 times. An aspect of this is that, according to the Sierra Club, the same amount of water that produces 1 pound of beef could produce 16 pounds of broccoli, 25 pounds of potatoes, and enough soybeans for 3 pounds of tofu or 5 pounds of whole wheat bread. So the point they're making is, why would anybody be starving? Our beef consumption robs us of the water that it then pollutes. Our beef consumption uses food that could be feeding people. Our beef consumption destroys forests and creates greenhouse gases, which warm the planet, contribute to drought, and lead to massive forest fires that are too big for human control, which I guess is a pretty efficient system if you're a cattle company. Oh, and our beef consumption houses and kills living beings in a way that would make most sane people lose their appetite. Professor Tim Benton of the University of Leeds says that the biggest intervention people could make toward reducing their carbon footprints would not be to abandon cars, but to eat significantly less red meat. I don't think anybody ever imagined us abandoning our cars, so this is actually really good news. It bears repeating. The biggest intervention people could make toward reducing their carbon footprints would be not to abandon their cars, but to eat significantly less red meat. So some of you may be getting angry right now. It's interesting, I don't know why, but food really touches our emotions. If I said the key to reducing greenhouse gases is to use less toilet paper squares, you'd be like, okay, going down to, from whatever you use, down to 2. You'd be fine. But I start talking about beef, someone's gonna get angry with me. I will get emails. Toilet paper will not generate the same amount of emails. But I think that indicator is very, very indicative of something. And I think it has to do with this next bit. You see, the really revealing part, the really painful part, is that I'm not breaking news. We all already know this. I've said it from this pulpit before. You've heard it on the news. You've seen it online. I mean, good God, if you're on Facebook and friends with a liberal, you've seen this stuff. We are Facebook believers, but dinner plate deniers. And if we deny the impacts of what we do every day, if we deny the pain that is produced by that slab of flesh to the planet, what that slab of flesh does to our planet, to the animal, to our bodies, and our fellow human beings all over the world, if we deny something so fundamental to our living, then we are climate change deniers. And worse, if we can deny all of that, and as a culture, we absolutely do. If our culture can deny all of that, then we get to practice denial at every meal. We personally, and as a culture, sustain ourselves on an act of denial. If self-delusion is the key to human evil, you better believe that denial is an oft-used tool in self-delusion. And with such religiously observed practice, maybe every meal, we get really good at it. We are hulks of denial. It becomes so easy then for our culture to deny other truths that are apparent, but do not fit the violent narrative of our self-conceptions. That narrative generated itself by the fear of our own weakness and contemptibility. So, we see things and just sort of live with them. Killing of a cameraman and a reporter, active shooters, the disproportionate killing of black men by officers of the state, death threats against my colleagues, the militarization of police, the militarization of religion, the killing of aid workers, the killing of homosexuals and transsexuals, the drought in California, the fires in Washington, the corruption of democracy in our country, the gutting of education locally, the present oligarchy, and the willful destruction of the animal and human habitability of this planet becomes easy. We are surrounded and enmeshed in violence that has nothing to do with our survival, right? These are symptoms of a culture proficient in denial, practiced at denial. Now, that my integrity is corrupted by my enmeshment in our system is infuriating. I cannot see the light of the doorway out. There are too many turns to take. It's almost impossible to disentangle myself entirely from the cause of my corruption, but in no way does that impossibility afford me the fantasy that denial provides me. I must always look at my corruption square in the face. If we cannot do it all, we must do what we can. And revealing our denial to ourselves and each other, and seemingly lifting up our intractable implicatedness should provide enough motivation to do what we can. Remember the hummingbird. And there's one easy thing to do, and it costs nothing. Stop eating beef. You can't bike everywhere. You can't give up cars or electricity, but this choice requires of you nothing but commitment, integrity, and love. In fact, it saves you money. Oh, we should have like a stewardship thing where the money you save on not spending beef, you donate to the church. I'll have to put that in the PDF. It saves you pain. It saves lives and pain for others. It saves the life and pain of a factory cow, the lives and pain of those most affected by climate change. And it saves your life. And it helps save the planet. And it's a punch in the nose to the system, that undifferentiated system of oligarchic capitalism. That system that profits off the destruction of our planet, our families, our world community, and ourselves. It is a punch in the gut to that system. For here is the restorative irony of our own culpability. Our investment in the systems that are destroying our planet actually give us power. You see, culpability equals power when it is infused with atonement. If you want to take back control of our food supply and therefore of our economy and your body and your soul, stop eating beef. If you want to do what you can to combat climate change, which very much includes taking back the food supply, because the food supply is rooted in the pesticide and petroleum companies who not only contribute the most to the planet's destruction, but who also reside at the top of the economic pyramid, then stop eating beef. You have power on your plate. You have ethics on your plate. You declare your allegiance to life or death by what is on your plate. You do. Yes, you do. Your compassion and character and your children's future are displayed in whatever is next to your broccoli. So here's my recommendation. Take the next step. Wherever you are, take the next step. If you are an omnivore, a high red meat eater, go meatless one day a week. If you are meatless one day a week, make it 2. If you don't eat cows, extend the compassion to pigs. If you're already plant-based, help us. More gently, maybe, than I am. All of this has only one benefit. Or I should say, all of this has only benefit. And it is something that we can all do, regardless of our station. And I cannot, for the life of me, understand why we would not.